Greetings metalheads, welcome to another edition of the Friday 13th YouTube channel. Today you're going to be watching an interview exclusively with Josh Christian from the band Toxik. Now Toxik are just about to release their new album coming out in August on Massacre Records. It's called Dis Morta. So check it out when it comes out, it's a fantastic album. If you've got the previous albums, Think This and World Circus, you're in for a great treat. So thank you Josh for doing the interview. Thank you everybody out there for watching. Enjoy, be safe, stay metal. Thanks a lot. Right everybody, we've got an interview with their guitar god, Josh Christian from the band Toxik, New York's finest. So Josh, thanks for doing the interview, brother.
Thanks, Jason.
So I'm going to ask you some warm-up questions first, because this is the actual first interview I've done with you guys. I never got the chance back in the 80s, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a long. Were you born yet?
Yeah, I was reviewing your albums when fucking World Circus was coming out.
I'm only kidding. I mean, sometimes it's like not unusual for someone to be like, I wish I had seen you guys, but I was born in 1997.
Right then, so I'm going to ask you some warm-up questions first then, Josh. Sure. First of all, as a guitar player, what age did you learn to play guitar, and which guitarist inspired you?
My first experience with guitar was actually from my father, who played a few different instruments, guitar being one of them, and he actually put it in my hands when I was about 6 years old. So I started quite young, but it was more of a musical, we're a musical family, so I didn't focus on guitar, or didn't get focused on guitar until I was probably, I want to say 16, 17, when I realized I actually had a gift for it, where it seemed to, it was drums for a long time, but I realized the guitar was really where it was at for me because I could write songs with it, and that was what was really coming out of me. So around, and as far as inspiration goes for guitar playing, that it's a long list. Like yourself, I come at this from a fan perspective, so I love a lot of people. I don't know that there was any one guitar player who really did it for me. I love all the same people that everyone else does. Van Halen. In my early formative years, Tony Iommi, Alex Lifeson from Rush, Jimmy Page, Steve Howe from Yes as a kid, but then I get turned on to Alan Holdsworth on the first UK record with Bill Bruford, and that kind of sends me off in this whole other direction. And at that point, I become more progressive-minded. It's a long history. Maybe one day I'll write it all down because it's been a fun trip to get here.
Yeah, I remember when we met in Germany at Headbangers Open Air. I was interviewing Loudness, and I gave Akira one of your CDs, and I got him to pose with the CD cover in his hand. Do you remember that?
Yeah, man, I do. Absolutely. That was actually a high point for me because Akira is somebody that I really looked up to for a long time. He's a great guitar player.
Did he actually reply to you did he actually listen to it?
I don't know if you ever listened to it. You know how that is, right? You hand somebody a CD and you never hear from them again, so you don't know if they did or didn't. But it was just a cool hang that day, and it was good to connect with somebody that I'd listened to for a long time.
Yeah, like I say, I got the opportunity to interview himself. Hey, I'll just pass him one of your Toxik CDs and see what he thinks.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. So I'm going to ask you, when I listen to your guitar playing, you can definitely hear Jason Becker and Marty Freeman, a cacophony sort of vibe. Do you agree? Do you think that's a compliment?
Yeah. Well, we were kind of contemporaries in terms of we were out at the same time. I did end up crossing paths with Marty on Think This. There was a possibility of him producing Think This. We spoke on the phone a couple of times about it, which is pretty interesting. But it didn't happen. I don't even remember exactly why we ended up going back to Morris Sound for Think This, but those guys were contemporaries. I was very aware of them. And World Circus came out, I think, before Speed Metal Symphony. World Circus had come out, and then Speed Metal Symphony came out right after, or World Circus was finished and Speed Metal Symphony came out. And I remember thinking to myself, because I was really proud of World Circus. Like, I knew I had done something pretty good on there, like guitar-wise. I was excited for it. But then I heard fucking Speed Metal Symphony and my face melted. Like, those two guys just took all of everything I was thinking and just did it way better. So, it was almost like, especially at that age, let's be quite honest, we're all very competitive in those young years, especially. So that was a real kick in my ass. So on Think This, full circle here to answer your question, on Think This, that makes itself apparent. Like my step up in guitar playing was really influenced largely by Jason and Marty and Greg Howe, and quite a few others, Paul Gilbert to a degree as well. I listened to a lot of Racer X, but I really was inspired by Marty and Jason. Those guys both together really kicked me up into another level with my thinking and my playing.
What do you think of like Apocrypha? I thought they were a pretty cool band as well.
I love Apocrypha. Amazing. One of the lesser known Shrapnel releases, but one of the better. You know, a real band, like great songwriting on those records. I like the first two. Yeah.
All right then. So moving on, we're talking about the Toxik. I mean, you guys formed in 1985 under the name Tokyo, I believe, but you had to change your name because of copyright situation. So who came up with the name Toxik?
I did. It was mine.
Yeah.
We grew up in the shadow of a nuclear power plant in the town where I grew up, and there were lots of radioactive symbols all around our town with warnings, and the word toxic was in abundance around us. So it just seemed like it was a good name.
All right, because the first album, World Circus, a fantastic album. Now, I remember actually hearing that for the very first time on the UK radio. We have a BBC radio show called the Friday Rock Show, and the presenter who passed away, Tommy Vance, he played all this underground stuff, and he played World Circus, and everybody was like, holy shit, who's these guys? So,
wow.
I went and bought the album. It's like, oh, you've got to check out this band. They sound very interesting. And that's my first introduction to you guys. But I mean, the first album, World Circus, I mean, how well did it sell for you? Because it was like a great album. Interesting.
Well, rest in peace, Tommy, and thank you for spreading our music. It did well, actually. World Circus was received pretty well, surprisingly, because we didn't really have a niche at that point. Thrash wasn't really even a thing yet. So we were a bit outside the mainstream, and I believe we won. It was College Music Journal, CMJ. I think we were Metal Album of the Year that year with that release. And quite a few other, we made a lot of lists. We made a lot of top 10 lists with people. So it was received well. Sales-wise, hard to tell, what's good sales. It did okay. It did well enough that the label decided to put out another record. But, it seemed to reach a pretty sizable audience for us as a first shot.
Right, because the first singer, Mike, I mean, he could sing high. He was like, holy shit. It's a bit insane.
He was a violin posing as a human being.
Okay, is that a good, bad thing?
No, I loved his voice. I loved Mike's voice, man.
Right.
It was,
I mean, what happened to Brian and Tad? I mean, Tad did the second album as well, didn't he think this?
Yes. Brian did too. That core group stayed together for those first two records, Brian, Tad, and I. And then we changed singers, and we added a guitar player on Think This, John Donnelly, and then Charlie Sabin came on for Think This. Interestingly enough, I'm about to go out. You're going to probably ask me about this run that's coming up with Toxik and Heathen. But believe it or not, we talked to Dave White in between World Circus and Think This about coming to sing on Think This. He was presented to us by the label as a possible singer for the record. It didn't work out, obviously, and we ended up taking Charlie. But, he did come up just as a side note on the Toxik Think This story.
Oh, wow, interesting. So, for the first album, World Circus, which songs are your favourites from the first album, Josh?
Oh, gosh, they're all my children. How do you pick your favorite kid? I love Voices. I think Voices is pretty far out. That's an experimental one for us. It doesn't sound like any other Toxik record on anything else we've recorded. So it's a real standout for me. Heart Attack is sort of our anthem. A lot of people know us from that song, and I for that reason, I love playing it too. It's a lot of fun to play. World Circus, I mean, there's a lot. I like that record. I like that album very much. Like, I'm an old guy now, so I can go back and listen to it with old ears, and I'm not unhappy with it. I think we did something pretty cool. It's an interesting effort.
So the first album deal with Road Records, who else did approach you? It was was it Road Racer, the first album?
It was Road Racer at that time. We talked with Metal Blade. We were released on a compilation. We actually talked to a couple of different labels, but really it was Road Racer all along, just because they had King. Me personally, and it was my band. I mean, I really was, Toxik has always kind of been my baby. As soon as Road Racer showed interest in us, I really was like, I wanted to work with them. In fact, in part because they were Dutch. It was a Dutch label, but also, again, they had King Diamond, and I was a huge King Diamond fan. So I really, like, the idea of being on the label with King was actually what made me want to be on the label. So, you know, and it was cool because we got to be direct support for him on the second record, so it worked out, you know.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So the second album then, Think This, I mean, you got Charlie on vocals. Why did Mike leave for the second album?
Just at that point in his life, you know, when you get to be 22, 23, you start to think about what you want to do with your life. And I don't think Mike saw a future for himself doing that. It wasn't working out for him. He also was catching quite a bit of bad press. At the time, people were quite hostile to those types of vocals. Growling was coming in, and, you know, sub-frequency roars were were what was like starting to happen. And Mike just didn't fit that mold. People like John Cyrus, Mike, Joey Belladonna, a lot of those guys took a beating in the press at the time, and Mikey wasn't feeling it. He didn't like being talked about that way. I think that added to his decision.
All right then. So where did you find Charles?
Well, Charlie actually was a neighborhood guy, was someone that I knew, had grown up with, had a bit of a competition going with. We'd always been in sort of competing bands together. I recognized his talent. I knew how good he was. And we really needed a singer. We had a second record ready to go. The whole album was written when Mike left. So Think This stalled when Mike left. And I was in a bit of a panic to replace him. And Charlie came along. I don't, in hindsight, not to in any way throw any shade, because I love what Charlie did on Think This. I think Charlie's voice was amazing on Think This.
I agree.
In hindsight, if we'd had a little bit of time to look for a different singer, another singer, I'm not sure he would have been our choice. He was local and available and could cut it and could cover the material on World Circus. Remember, we had to have someone who could come and sing what Mike had done. That wasn't easy to find. And Charlie happened to live 3 blocks away from me. Like, we lived in the same town. He was literally my neighbor. If I stepped out the back door and whistled, he could hear it. That's how close we were. So it just was like, look, man, I need a singer. You're right here. Fuck it. Come in. Let's do our thing. And we did.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, what songs from the Think This album's your favourites and why? For me, I love There Stood a Fence. I think that's a brilliant ballad.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, it's like picking amongst your children. I love the whole record. There's a couple of deep cuts on that record that people don't talk much about, but that I think are really good. Time After Time, Technical Arrogance. There's a couple of moments there where we sort of really broke out of the thrash mold altogether and did something different. And honestly, what I think hinted at where we were headed, and ultimately now on the new record coming out, I think we have a lot more of that feel. Like I feel like I kind of grew on those 2 songs. The new record comes from that place where they were headed. So yeah, a lot of good tracks in it. But thank you. The Defense is very popular.
Oh man, it's a brilliant song. I remember, like I said, the radio show in the UK played it one night when they released the second album. I was like, wow, this is a brilliant ballad. It really is. I mean, how well did that album sell for you compared to the first album?
It did quite well. You know, I think the reason that There's the Defense was accepted by our audience and by the thrash or the heavier audience in general was because it was a very honest song. Like, subjectively, it's not a romantic song. It's not a happy song. There's not a happy ending in it. It's a ballad, but it's very somber. It's you know, it's apocalyptic, actually. And I think that helped sell it to the audience. I think if it had been a love song or almost any other subject, it would have crashed and burned because it is a ballad. But because it was so dark in the subject, the sweetness of the music juxtaposed to that made it really work. And if nothing else, I have to say, the metal audience displays its intelligence at moments like that, like where they're willing to accept something that maybe another genre would kick right out because it doesn't fit the mold. Our family is a little bit more open-minded. We're a little cooler than that. If you bring something real, people will latch onto it. And I think that's why There's the Defense caught on the way it did, because it was a very honest and real song. It's a sad song, you know, and I meant it when I wrote it, you know, it's sad.
I mean, the album cover is really good. I mean, the title, Think This, who came up with the title?
It was mine, you know, it was my baby. That's my concept on that record. But when I say that too, like, I don't want to go on, but I'll make it quick. When I say that, it's one guy comes into the band with a thought or an idea, and then the band kicks it around. So it really kind of becomes the band's no matter what. Yes, I may be the impetus for things, but ultimately the band colors it along the way. So yes, think this was my concept, but the band on the whole contributed to that record and making it what it was. That was a group effort, 100%.
So before we move on and talk about the new album, why did you break up after that album with it being such a great album?
Because I was sick of sharing the spotlight with other people and I wanted it all to myself. No, I'm kidding. The label just didn't know what to do with us. Honestly, I feel like Toxik should have had a better shot than it did. You know, I've talked to the brass from the label at that time, no names mentioned, because I don't harbor any hostilities. But, you know, I've asked people who were in management at the label at the time, like, why didn't you push us a little bit more? Why didn't you give us a video for There's the Defense? Why didn't you put that song across? I actually got a phone call from Cliff Bernstein, the guy who managed Def Leppard and Metallica and Madonna, on that song. He literally called me at my mom's house and was like, do you have another one of these songs? Like, that song connected with people, you know? And the person I talked to from Roadrunner was like, yeah, dude, it just didn't connect. It didn't connect with anybody. And I'm like, bullshit, man. You just didn't know what to do with us. Let's keep it real. You know, I would think 30 years later, you'd have the humility to say we fucked up. But whatever. It's cool. It is what it is. You know, life goes on.
Me personally, you've probably been better off signing with Shrapnel.
We may have been. You know what? Mike Varney probably would have treated us a little bit better in terms of knowing what to do with us. That's for sure.
Right then, so you came back. I mean, you came back in what, 2018, 2017? You made Is that because they re-released the two albums on Dis Records? The interest.
It was actually 2014. That contributed to it, but that's not why we came back. We came back because we were starting to write songs, and it was time to make music again. It was pretty honest. We had gotten back together back in 2007 to film a documentary about the band, actually, and we weren't really ready to reform, but that planted the seed. That was back in 2007. And then in 2012, I was working on some music. I was starting to build guitars, and I wanted to use Toxik as a bit of a prop for my guitar business. So I had suggested to Mike Sanders, hey, how about we record a couple of songs? We'll put it out under the name Toxik, and it'll really help me sell this guitar brand that I'm starting to get going here. And Mike jumped on social media and said Toxik is back, which was like wasn't doing anything bad, but he just kind of took the step to do that. And we got a lot of response, and that made us realize that, wow, we've got something here. People want to hear it. And that was the kickoff. So that's 2014.
Right, I'd have to say you're a very unique guitar player, Josh. I'm not just saying that. You've got a unique style. And if I had to put you in another band, if, say, Toxik broke up, I'd say you'd be suitable for a Symphony X. If Mike Romeo left.
That's a real compliment. Mike Romeo is ridiculously good. You know what I mean? He's a great guitar player. So thank you.
So you.
Thank you. Wow, I respect that guy. Funny, I just watched a video of him the other day. There was somebody taking him apart on YouTube. The video was like, is he the greatest guitar player, the greatest unknown guitar player? And it's like, he's just, you know, it's videos of him just ripping and doing his thing. And I had to comment, it's like, he's not unknown. People who know. Like, that dude is the shit, you know? So, yeah, great. Thank you. That's a great compliment. Appreciate
All right,
that.
then. Thank you. Welcome, Josh. So, the next question is we're going to talk about the new album then. So, the title is called Dis Morta. Is it Dis Morta?
No,
Dis Morta, yeah. So, who came up with the title and what does it mean?
I actually came up with the title when we were out. We did a run in 2016 down in Latin America, and I was surrounded by people speaking various dialects of Spanish, and Dis is slang for this, and Morta is death. And I just started saying it to myself. I was like, Dis Morta. Like, I had this thing I was saying like for that whole run. And I was like, I have got to do something with this title. So I kind of it's been kicking around for a while. And once I had a concept that I kind of could connect with it, it became a song and became the record. And that's where it started from.
All right. So was that the only title you had for the album?
Yeah, never thought of another title. That was it from the beginning.
So how did the deal with Massacre Records come about? Who else did you approach for this new album?
Craig Lung, actually, who manages Toxik right now from Heathens/Exodus. Craig got the deal for us with Massacre. I think we sent our tapes, our recordings around to quite a few people, and I don't think we had frankly, I don't think we had a lot of takers. Massacre offered us the best deal of what was offered to us, and Massacre is a really cool label. I was actually really happy that they came out. Again, it was one of those, like, once we were presented with what we had as far as options, it was pretty clear who we were going to go with. And so Craig arranged that, put it together, and we've been working with them now for about a year, and it's great. They're a great label, very supportive, a lot of interaction. Get the music, they're behind us. Pretty cool.
So when's this album released? I mean, what I'm looking at, it says the 5th of August. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Wow, it's quite a long time away then, isn't it? I mean, I only got the album yesterday and I've been playing it today at the gym when I've been working out, and it's like, it's a really heavy album, really dark compared to what you've done in the past. Do you agree?
I do, and you know what? Here's an interesting thing for you, Jason. I don't know how many people do this. Tell me what you think. I'm curious because it's so fresh and just so few people have heard it. What is your take on
Right.
it?
When I first heard it, I thought, I was expecting it to be like Think This, World Circus, but it's not. It's heavier and darker, and it's just like, at first I was like, do I like this? I'm going to have to play it a few times. It's one of those albums where you're going to have to play it. But it's definitely heavier. You've gone for a heavier, darker approach. And I kind of think it's something to do with the fact that we've been in lockdown and you guys have been pissed off, so you've wrote some dark music. Do you kind of agree with me on that?
No. Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe the pandemic had something to do with that, maybe a little bit, but not really. I really feel that, again, the subjects of the songs and the songs themselves, it's a social critique, very much the way World Circus and Think This was. It's much more of a reflection of the world that we're in right now. I would say, to what you just said, World Circus and Think This were both, when they came out, were both met with, man, it's heavy. It's really intense. I'm not sure what to make of it. Like, our records are kind of like that. Like, I feel that we're not like trying to write formula. Like, we have a formula in that, there's a verse and there's a chorus, but I don't feel like we're a formulaic band. That's really not what we do. So you're liable to be a bit surprised by our songs. We have a way of kind of like bringing that to it. And both World Circus and Think This were, I think, tough listens for a lot of people on the first one and two. But, and I like this about our music, it seems that if you listen to it once or twice, that it gets you. And then once it's got you, now you're listening to it. And that seems to be the report so far on this record with people, is that they've listened to it once or twice. They weren't sure how I've had a few people that just loved it immediately, but I've had a couple people that weren't sure how accessible it was. But then after listening to it once or twice, they're like, holy shit, man, I love this. Oh my goodness. So it's cool, man. I feel like it's Toxik. We did it again.
Yeah, you have, because you can definitely tell it's your guitar playing, especially when it comes to guitar solos. We know then the old Toxik vibe kicks in. But it's definitely a heavy album. It's very, very heavy compared to what you've done before.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get new fans, I guess, on this album, badly. What I've heard so far.
Yeah. I feel like thrash in general, like a lot of the bands that were our contemporaries from that period of time, a lot of the bands have sort of like gone more mid-tempo with a lot of their material. They've kind of like gotten into rocking out a little bit more. This is a very fast record. Dis Morta is quick. Like, we didn't go off on the BPMs at all. So we kept it heavy that way too. I feel like it's actually got moments where it's almost a little black metal-ish, a little tech metal. Like, it has moments of being very dark, which is cool. I like that. I
agree with you on that one. So let's talk about the songs then. So you said the album title's called This Death, or this, so the second song is called Feeding Frenzy. So how do you see that song?
Feeding Frenzy is actually about people being stuck in an economy that they have no choice about, born into a world where they have to serve. And it's a feeding frenzy. Either you can eat it, kill it, or fuck it. And that's kind of like, that's the chorus. It's eat it, kill it, fuck it, right? Yeah. And that's kind of that is the organizing principle of a lot of our lives. And it's a very heavy track. Again, very quick. I think it's 205. It's over 200 BPM. It's quick. It's a fast one.
I mean, the next song was The Radical. That's the one with the woman at the beginning saying, "You're a fucking preacher," and all this shit. It's like, whoa, where did you get that from?
That was just a video that we found on YouTube that was floating around a bit, and just was a real snapshot into a radical fundamentalist thought. You know, there's somebody who's really carried away with the spirit in a negative way. So I thought, what a perfect beginning to a song called The Radical.
Then you got like Power.
Power is actually a reference to state power. All of those songs have a meaning. None of them are just sort of meaningless. Power is dealing, again, with the church. There's a lot of hostility to organized religion on this record. That's one of the central themes, has always been for me personally. And Power is sort of about church and state authority oppressing us, making it the powers that be. Catchy riff, quick tune, killer solo. One of my better, I feel like one of the guitar moments on the record. I really got to cut loose on that. Ron's voice is sick on that song. That's the first single. That'll be the first single, actually.
I mean, the album's like a brilliant album, like I say. I mean, the title, the artwork for this album. What did the artwork for the album?
Alcides Byrne, Brazilian guy, came to us through Martin Furia, our producer, guitar player now in Destruction, Martin, right? Martin co-produced the record with me and had actually suggested Alcides to us because we were working with someone else and it kind of fell through and we knew what we wanted, and he nailed it. It's really great. It's very much what we were hoping to have.
Was this the first album cover you had in mind then, with the skull with the machine guns?
Well, you know, it went through a couple of different themes. I had a couple of different characters to use on the cover. Like, we had a couple of different ideas, but this, excuse me, that character, that skull, that artwork is, we've been using something like it for a long time on T-shirts and so forth. It's kind of already Toxik artwork. It's just been updated. So anybody who's been following us over the last 10 years actually has seen the Blood, Guns, and Oil artwork. But this is a newer version of it and sort of brought into the present. And again, done very, very well. I'm really happy with what he did. Okay,
then. So the songs on the new album, which ones are your favorites?
Oh, gosh, there's a lot of great material, if I do say so. I like Power. You mentioned Power already. I like The Radical off the first side. On the second side, there's a couple of really deep cuts again. Devil in the Mirror is a really strong song. Very, very. I'm giving people a hard time on that one lyrically. I'm telling people to look in the mirror and stop pointing fingers at other people and just take responsibility for yourself. If you don't like the world, look in the mirror. That's the message on that song. And then that's followed by Judas, which again is a bit of an indictment on, you know, humanity in general. It's a very cynical record, I have to say. I'm fucking sick of you people. But it's really, those two tracks are kind of bookends with each other and make a single statement. And together, I want to say it's about 12 minutes. So if you think of like old 70s records where you had half the album was a one track, that's almost what's going on there. Between Chasing Mercury, Devil in the Mirror, and Judas, the last three songs, they all kind of walk 1, 2, 3 into each other and basically make a single block. I almost call them part 1, 2, and 3. Right. I really like those three. I really like what happened.
Okay, then. So, the vocalist, Ron, where did you find Ron?
Ron is a local guy for us here in the New York, New Jersey metro area music scene. I've known him for a long time. He had his own band that he was leading and singing and playing guitar for called Xenophile that had a few releases out. People may know Xenophile, really, really techie, cool, you know, artsy band, artsy metal band, art metal is the best way to describe them. And he's currently playing guitar in Paralysis as well, which is what I would consider like a pretty classic thrash band, old school thrash band. Ronnie's a very diverse, super talented guy. And I had asked him to join the band or to consider it between Inhumanity and Breaking Class, which is when Mike left and Charlie joined. I had actually approached Ron first, but he wasn't ready for it. He just didn't feel like he was ready. He was too young. And so Charlie came and did Breaking Class, but when it was time to work on Kinetic Closure, which was the EP that came after Breaking Class, Ronnie actually called me and he was like, "Hey man, if that spot's still open, I'd really like to come and try." And I was like, "Really?" because the timing was perfect. Again, you know, Toxik has been the benefactor of good timing many times. We've had people show up right at the right time. And that's it. That's where Ronnie came from. Ronnie came in and we started working together, and it's been writing and performing since that day. And that was in 2018.
All right, then briefly, just tell me where you found Eric van Drotten. Is he Dutch? Is he from Holland?
He's Dutch, and he's our guitar tech. He actually worked with the band for a couple of runs, and is a good friend with our tour manager, and is all of our good friends. He's family, and when it came time to add a second guitar player, there was no one else that we even considered.
All right, okay then. So when we're going to see the band? I mean, you're touring very shortly with Heathen. This is going to be a lot for James to do. 2 sets in one night. It's going to be really tiring for him. Are you looking forward to this tour? Because it's happening next week, isn't it?
Yeah, no, of course. We're excited as we can be. In fact, I just talked to James this morning. We had a laugh about it. Like, James and I now are the Toxik twins. James has become key member in Toxik. He and I, there's a synergy between us. And over the last 7 years, we've really kind of brought to fruition what Toxik has become. He's like 50% of what's going on at this point in the band. So we're like the Toxik twins. So I said to him this morning, he's like, how are we doing? He's like, dude, we're doing great. You know, like, we're sharing this experience. He is going to be in amazing physical condition by the end of this tour, doing double duty. Like, I figure, like, at the end of 20 days of playing these 2 sets back to back, he's gonna like look like Superman, you know, because this is like, the guy's gonna burn 3,000 calories a night doing this job. So
are you going to be playing? Why are you not playing the UK? What's the reason for not playing the UK on this?
You know, they just added us where they could. I'm not really 100% sure, because I wasn't involved in the booking part of it. I'm really the creative part of Toxik. I try not to engage in too much of the business. A, I'm not good at it. B, it frustrates me. So I just let other people do that. But I think what was going on more than anything else is the record's not out yet. It was hard to sell us more than what we were already on. Like, again, it's hard to get a tour if you're not out supporting a record. So we don't have the record out yet. It's been a while since anything else came out. It's a little difficult to book gigs. I'm happy to have what we have. It's a great opportunity for us. We're going to crush. Us and Heathen together is going to be a great bill. Yeah, it's perfect. There's no complaints at all. And then hopefully when the record comes out in August, there's talk about maybe going to Latin America in the fall, and some Asia, maybe we go to Japan in the winter. And then for sure we'll hit the festival season hard next year. And not that you asked me, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm already writing the next record. Like, we're pretty far into the next record writing wise. So when Ron gets back and I get back from doing this run, James is going to be on the road with Heathen. We're going to start recording the vocals for the next Toxik record, so that when James comes off the road, we can get the drums and the bass done. And hopefully we'll actually have the next record ready to be mixed by, say, October, November. Ambitious as it may sound, that's the plan. And then this way we can maybe release another record within a year. Be great to put out a second record this time next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully I might see you at Headbangers Open Air, because I may be going this year. Just, you know, so if you're just hanging out there, because I know you're on tour at the same time, I might see you for a drink.
Yeah, we weren't invited to that one to play, but yeah, I'll be there for sure, and I look forward to it.
All right then, brother. I'd like to thank you for doing this interview. Do you have anything to say to the people watching this on YouTube?
I think I've said enough. Really happy to still be doing it, obviously. Looking forward to people getting the new record in their hands. We worked hard on it. We did it for you all. I think you're going to like it a lot. I've got an announcement today that revolves roughly around this guitar that I'm playing right now. I am now a part of the Dean family. This is the first place that
Congratulations.
Yes. So I'll be playing this on the road, and yeah, just things are fantastic, honestly. Can't wait to see you all. Rock on.
Right, thank you, Josh. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Say hello to the guys for me.
Thanks, brother.